Hi, welcome to another Biodevils podcast. It's been a really long time since we've done one of these, actually, I think. But anyways, that's kind of irrelevant. We're here to talk about some Yakuza, specifically the very first game, plus Kiwami. And before we even get into this podcast, before we introduce the cast, as always, probably some of you who are still interested in playing Yakuza but have never actually played Yakuza, if you're trying to go into Yakuza, or really specifically the first game, spoiler free, right? This isn't the podcast for you. Come check out this podcast after you've played the game. That way you don't get spoiled if you're trying to avoid spoilers, because that kind of is somewhat relevant since there is a Switch port now. That all said, let's get into cast introductions. Well, you all know me as Biodevil Dom, and I am followed by Sir Brandel. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yep, back on the casting couch. Hi.
He said back on the casting couch. Alrighty, after that, we got KaptainKaos.
What's up, guys?
After that, we got Mr. Martin, PsychoRender.
Hello. It is very good to be back. Also, Merry Christmas.
Well, yeah. If you're watching this,
Happy Hanukkah.
I've uploaded this.
Happy Kwanzaa.
Uploaded this on Christmas or Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. I don't know. You'll know when you see it. Anyway, after that, we got Mr. DevilHunterJames. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm James Hunter Devil, I'll have you know, Doctor, Professor, PhD.
Yeah, and last but not least, we have Gamma.
I fucking hate Mahjong.
Don't we all?
All right.
Don't we all?
I love it in real life. I hate it in Yakuza.
I never played any of those Mahjong games.
I think, I think that's an actual, hated minigame in this series. I think I've seen a video, recommended to me on my YouTube feed saying, why the player base, hates Mahjong. I've never actually watched said video, but, I'm pretty certain I've seen that in my feed at least once. So I'm not surprised that people don't like it. I don't particularly like it.
I think in Kiwami 2, they kind of, force you to play one of the Mahjong games.
Oh,
No, there's a sub-story that requires you to save this dude by playing Mahjong. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
I can't play Mahjong. This guy's fucked.
Yes, you're dead.
Hot take. I actually learned how to play it, so I actually like it.
How dare you?
I would say though,
like-
a shogi fucking sucks.
Shogi sucks,
I
too.
like Mahjong too. I just don't like playing it in most video games because it's just shit RNG that attached to it rather than actual skill and pattern recognition.
Yeah. I mean, well, and Martin brought this up too. Shogi sucks too. I don't understand
Honestly-
Shogi. I don't get it.
Most Yakuza minigames honestly kind of suck. Either it's too RNG dependent or some other bullshit behind it that you can't control.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
Okay.
Anyway, we can definitely get into more of the mini games and just the gameplay a little bit later. Let's just talk about Yakuza 1. Just in general, Yakuza 1. We have the original game on PS2, which was also had an exclusive Japanese HD port on PS3 and Wii U. Which I assume most of you probably have not played that. I haven't even played it myself, but I am aware of a couple of things about it. And then, of course, Kiwami. So, what are some general things that that we like about Yakuza? I guess let's kind of focus on that.
The original.
Wait, is this beyond Kiwami now?
Yeah, are we talking about the game or the spirits? Because I thought we were talking about the game here.
Yeah, we're talking about the game. First game, the HD remaster, along with Kiwami, whatever you've played of the first game, specifically the first game.
All right.
The style switching is amazing. I think that's the easiest thing to say, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's lit. What game did they not continue that in? 2, right?
Six.
Yeah, they bended in
Six
2.
onward.
No, I thought one of the Kiwamis like didn't do. I thought it was 2.
Yes,
Q-
it was 2.
Yes,
Yes,
two.
but it started with 6, and then Kiwami 2 also didn't follow it.
Yeah.
It followed 6's gameplay.
Yep.
Yeah, I gotta give them
That's
the
why-
L on that one. I don't know why they stopped doing it when it's such a good system.
I'm in the camp of I don't miss it because how well refined the gameplay is in 6 and 2 is that you legit wouldn't miss it because you got everything together in one combo package.
I mean, I like either personally, but like, I guess it works in Yakuza 1 and 0's favor, right? Because you have style switching in those, and it's fucking fun. So, yeah.
I mean, it
fully
works so
on board
well,
with
it
that.
just gets carried over to pretty much most every other game that the Ryogaga Koto studio worked on.
Yeah.
You know, I guess somewhat aside, with the exception of Like a Dragon, where they went for the turn-based route.
Yeah, oh, go on.
The system is at its peak though, and Lost Judgment. That
Yes.
game
Oh, yeah.
feels absolutely good to play.
I haven't played the Judgment games yet, so I have no opinion on them. But I've been meaning to get on them. I need to get
Oh,
back
you
on
did.
my.
Broad.
I will say, without spoiling anything, like the combat in Lost Judgment feels like maybe like 2 steps forward, or maybe 1 step back in a way as well. Because they got rid of some stuff I liked in Judgment that made it a little bit more challenging. It feels like in Lost Judgment, you can, I forget what, I think it was the crane or the which style it was, but there's one style where I think it was the Aikido style or whatever, where you could just easily like just sort of you just go around somebody and avoid most of their attacks like fairly easily if you hit a button at the right time. So it kind of takes some of the challenge away, in my opinion. But
Well, that sounds like it's skill dependent, if anything. So
kind
Skill
of.
issue.
I think we should get back on topic to 1. But,
Yeah.
This Lost Judgment gameplay is amazing. It's like having 6, in my opinion. But yeah.
All
All right, Arnold, calm down.
Anyway, yeah. So like I said, I haven't played Judgment, so I'm not going to talk anything about that. But like, like Yakuza 1. If you play Yakuza 1 now on the PS2, or if you decide to emulate it, because like 10 years ago it was a pain in the ass to emulate. Now, from what I understand, it's actually a functional game if you emulate it. It does show its age in terms of the combat. So I do think like Kiwami, for example, and we'll kind of go more in depth on the gameplay a little bit later, but like I do think like style switching being added into Kiwami was like a great quality of life change to that game. It made that game feel more like at that, and I think at that point too, they've kind of perfected having you getting into fights, like because in Yakuza 1 it was like this issue of like you got into a fight, you dreaded getting into a fight because of the loading screens between getting into the fight and getting out of the fight, plus how poorly balanced those fights were at the time, on top of like and this is pre-HD collection where like Kiryu would be just locked in one direction if he started attacking. As far as I know, like the HD collection did introduce like some quality of life changes, like loosening up the directional attacks to kind of feel more like Yakuza 3 at that point. Added in things like item boxes at the telephone booth save points, which also was like a quality of life change in Yakuza 3. I'm fairly certain they did mess with the frame rate. Either they made it more stable or it's a locked 60 on the HD collection, but I have no way to verify it because I've never actually played the HD collection.
I'm not gonna speak on a frame rate because I don't remember much myself. in that regard. But I will say that like all those quality of life things in there make it much better. Combat feels way smoother than on the PS2. Loading screens are no longer an issue. It is overall just great.
Yeah. Do you quick? Do you know if they added in more quality of life changes to the original Yakuza 2 in that collection over 1, or is it just kind of equal across the board? Would you say?
Okay. So this is where you kind of got me on the spot, right? Because I only played 1, even though I have 2 on that HD collection.
That's fair. I was just curious if you happen to know, like, because I mean, if you happen to get to that game on the collection, or if you happen to just remember off the top of your head. That's why I had to ask. But So like I said, that's an HD collection that it exists, but most of you probably haven't played it or even knew anything about it, so I'm not too surprised.
I was gonna just say real quick, because I know we're talking about like how our brief thoughts, I guess, about the original Yakuza 1. But yeah, I initially got into Yakuza because people were comparing it to Shenmue, which I really like the Shenmue games, and I guess they were comparing it in the sense that it's I think it's just because like it has like somewhat of a similar maybe like a similar plot or somewhat similar gameplay.
The sandbox is definitely similar, that's for certain.
Yeah, I will say like yes and no to some regard, like some extent. Like I mean that's one of the things I did like about the Yakuza 1 is it like if you don't know anything about Yakuza and you look at a character like Kiryu, you're just like, oh, he's just typical tough guy. He's that's all there is to him. But you actually play the game. There's actually like a lot of depth to his character, and
he's actually a big dork.
Yeah, so that's what I liked about it is that Kiryu is just an initially like immediately engaging character, and you're immediately kind of drawn into the story because of what happens in the very beginning of the game with him kind of being like framed in a way for the murder, and you kind of want to follow it from there. But then, there are some typical issues of a game that had come out in that, in the PS2 era with the gameplay just, it is fun. Like, the combat is fun, but you also have to accept it. It's very jank, and it feels very much like the typical, PS2 era game, and that, there's, like we brought up before, there's, like, a lot of loading screens in between combat. And the problem, it wouldn't be so bad if, you weren't constantly approached by bad guys, while you're traversing the world. And, at some points, I remember in the original game, I almost avoided fights because I didn't want to sit through all the loading screens. And, I didn't want to put up with that because it felt like once you were done with one fight, like 5 seconds later, there'll be another guy to come and fight you, and you'll have to sit through another loading screen. And it's just, there's stuff like that.
Really quick.
But aside from that, I was going to say too, so if you can look past that, it's still a pretty fun game, even with all the shortcomings of it being a game from the PS2 era. And you also have to keep in mind that this is one of the first, if not, the first game in the Yakuza series from the studio. And it's a formula that they are, I will say, it's rewarding to play the other games in the series because you see how they're constantly improving on the formula that they had in the original Yakuza. And especially I think a big example of that would be Kamurocho itself, how it's constantly expanding. In each successive game, Kamurocho just is even bigger, and also with some of the other games, you even go to other locations too. Yeah. So and the combat is just also improved in the other games too. But the Yakuza, it's just in and of itself is a really good game, and even if it's the only game for whatever reason you ever just play in the series, it's kind of a good sort of open and closed story. I mean, obviously there's more to it in the later games, but it's good for even if it's the only one you play. But yeah, that's just my general thoughts on it.
I was just gonna say, like, in regards to that, like, the thing you brought up, like, most people say the same thing. When it comes to Yakuza 1, it's like, even though we're kind of harping on some of those things from the original game, like, aside from the fact that some of this stuff was, again, addressed in that HD collection, which was, for whatever reason, exclusive to Japan. Fun fact, when I asked about it once on a stream for Yakuza 5, the localizers told me they would have to cancel the localization for 5 and for 0 for some reason. I don't know why, when it's literally a copy-paste job for text, but, what the fuck do I know?
Well, I could probably give a little insight on that one, actually. Being that Sega did not promote or want to ship out Yakuza like that since it wasn't that popular in the West, naturally, why would they allocate resources to another project, especially since one is already struggling, and the other one, why would they? Nobody cares for it, so fuck it, right? So I don't fault them for not porting it over. And besides that, though, like it really matters, we have the remakes, no?
We do have the remakes, but I do think, and this is kind of a good place to segue to, I think. Even though the stories are the same, with the exception of Kiwami adding in the Nishiki flashbacks, the stories are identical. The problem, I think, is that, one, you do have some content that is altered in the original game that's not exactly the same in Kiwami. There's also stuff that's in Kiwami that was never in the original, of course. And then also just to, for me at least, this is kind of a, not necessarily a point of contention, but just something that I think most people would probably notice, is that the soundtrack is completely different, and I think that kind of gives a tonal change to the games. I do think that the seriousness of that story and stuff like that is still there in Kiwami 1, but because they did remix and rearrange those soundtracks, it does also give a different feel to the overall story and stuff like that. And
I agree. It is definitely a much different vibe. I really fuck with the original soundtrack a lot.
Yeah. We'll talk more about the soundtrack for sure, but I just thought I want to throw that out there, which is kind of why I am still to this day pretty mad that they never actually ported that HD collection, because it literally is just a copy-paste job.
You would think that they would have done something like that when they came out with the Yakuza Remastered collection.
Well, I thought they would have done that when they were doing 5. If it had to be digital only, right? I would have been fine with that, because at least we could have gotten those games, because it's digital only, right? Not necessarily the greatest solution, but at least there would have been a way to get it, right? Yeah. So.
I will say though, despite the shortcomings, or hardware limitations of the PS2, right? I will say that the first game is very impressive for its age too.
I think so too.
In a lot of ways. So it's I would say it's worth to go back and kind of check out if people are interested, right? Because there are some interesting stuff there that's not in the remake.
Yeah.
You have the soundtrack, but you also have the English dub, which is really funny in a lot of ways.
It's pretty funny.
Mark Hamill is Majima.
Yeah.
Here you use flat voice acting.
Who, by the way, Mark Hamill doesn't even fucking remember voicing Majima, which I find hilarious.
The spirit of Majima took over.
I just look. I have a bit of a hot take. I love the original English dub for Yakuza. I stand that dub, but that's
it's unironically a good dub for the most part.
English is an art. That's all I'll say.
I mean, at least the voice actor for Kiryu was actually
was it Yang? Yeah.
Yeah. That.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what whoever, I don't know why people. Well, I don't know. That's another topic in and of itself. Why people
look, man, he was breaking the voice. He was breaking the world. It's fine.
The law, yeah.
Not our eardrums.
So anyway, real quick before we segue into the story here, I just wanted to kind of bring up one other point that Chaos mentioned. Like people compared like Shenmue to Yakuza or Yakuza to Shenmue, and I really don't like that comparison.
It's I feel like it's pretty misleading,
Well,
honestly, because
I
people
I
go in with a
agree.
certain expectation, and yeah, you. I don't know. I feel like some people, like, even though they're maybe expecting it to be exactly like Shenmue, they might still come out liking it, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's not going to be, it's not going to be Shenmue. Like, I
I
just think, yeah,
I
they should
see. I agree,
go in
but
knowing that.
I think the problem is that Shenmue is. Unfortunately, people have this misconception that Shenmue is a beat 'em up when it's really more of a detective like adventure game, more so than anything.
With a lot of QTEs.
Yeah, so like Shenmue is like, obviously we're not here to talk about Shenmue. We did a whole podcast on Shenmue. You could check out that if you want, but like Shenmue, I think is a very specific type of game where like if you're not invested from the very beginning, you're not going to like it. And unfortunately,
Yeah.
a lot of people who play Yakuza first jump into Shenmue and disliking Shenmue because of the fact that it's not Yakuza. And it's kind of unfortunate because I think Shenmue is really awesome as its own little story, and I'm hoping to see more out of that franchise as soon as possible. But
I think the story doesn't help between the gameplay and that, because at least for me, kids learning to fight, right? He's trying to learn from all this stuff, and you never really flex it. So that's my complaint: is like, when do I get to do any of this stuff?
yeah, but see that.
That's just me.
Yeah, see, like we could talk about that, right? But like, I'll keep this short. Basically, it's the problem with that is that like people have that misconception, and then like 2 and 3 literally address that issue, especially 3. But nobody wants to talk about that because people are just focused on, well, how does 3 look as a game, or the fact that 3 is for the most part like a not really the game that people expected it to be or wanted it to be versus the game that it actually was always meant to be, But again, I'm not going to talk too much about Shenmue because that's a whole another game, and we already did a podcast for that.
Right.
But in terms of like Yakuza, right? Like I think I never really understood that comparison. And I think maybe part of that also comes from the fact that the creator of Yakuza was involved in the development of Shenmue, which may have led to that.
I think we're also missing the biggest link between the two, actually. Like, the open world is sandbox in general. How you interact with it is very similar to each other. Like, the fact that it's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, right? Is that, I mean, I do see some of the inspiration there, right? But I wouldn't say that like, this is a successor to this game, because I mean that is misleading, right?
I agree. Yeah. That's the audience itself, right? But to ignore the actual comparisons, though, like that's why I took issue with this conversation.
No, I don't want to. Yeah, like I don't want to disregard those comparisons because there are things that are like, yeah, you could definitely see where that inspiration or like some of those development, like that development experience from the creator, because again, the creator was part of the development team of Shenmue, so like yeah, that stuff is definitely like thrown in there, right? But I think it's like so like very specific and focused on like certain aspects of Yakuza that it doesn't make up the whole to like say like, yeah, this whole game is exactly like Shenmue, which the comparison doesn't really make sense, at least to me. But I understand it. I just, like I said, I don't necessarily agree with it. That said, I do think I do think that where maybe the story or sorry, getting ahead of myself here. I do think where comparisons could maybe be made and where it might be a little bit more accurate is like the story, because it focuses on like like murder and revenge and stuff like that, and it's a crime drama series, right? And in Shenmue there is a murder, there is like drama going on in that series, right? So I think at least from a story perspective, that comparison makes a lot more sense than from the gameplay side of things, at least in my opinion. That said, how do you all feel about Yakuza's story? Because this is going to be easy in the sense of you didn't have to play the original game to know what's going on in the story, because it's exactly identical, minus the Nishiki flashback segments, which are brand new to Kiwami.
It had a pretty decent story for the most part. I mean, it's like we said, it's a crime drama for sure, and you know, I like how it gets into the kind of like, I guess, the politics of the Yakuza underworld and all the different families, which of course is something that it kind of gets expanded on throughout the Yakuza series. But you really get introduced to it in the first game. And it also just kind of presents a pretty compelling story with Haruka and Kiryu having to like protect her, and and also like Kiryu as well, I guess, trying to clear his name. But it also introduces all the characters some of the characters that will become like a staple of the franchise, like Majima, for instance. And Majima is just, I feel like that's what a lot of people are going to remember about Yakuza, is just Majima, because of how unhinged and crazy he is. And, he's just a really, memorable character for a lot of those reasons. But, it's not, of course, it's not like the greatest story ever or anything, but it was pretty good for what it was. And especially, I guess, like how we were bringing up before, it is somewhat similar to Shenmue in that sense, and that it is like, sort of a mystery crime drama, but instead, as opposed to Shenmue, where you're just, trying to investigate your father's murder and trying to find Lan Bi. In this one, it's still a crime sort of mystery, but it's also just, like I said, you're an ex-Yakuza, or, and you're trying to clear your name, and it introduces the Yakuza underworld. So it's also very different in that regard. But, still, I thought the story was decent for what it was. And I feel like it does get a lot better with, some of the sequels and how they expand on, like, a lot of the stuff that got brought up in Yakuza 1. And especially, like, I mean, because I know we're talking about Kiwami as well. I guess that's just with the original Yakuza 1. But with Kiwami, like, yeah, it is pretty much the same, aside from, like Dom said, with the Nishiki flashbacks. I want to bring that up, too, because I feel like, the story is pretty much kept the same. But I also feel like Kiwami benefits greatly from people who have previously, like, played Yakuza 0, before, if they'd played that before Kiwami, because Yakuza 0 really goes into the friendship with Kiryu and Nishiki, and what happened before the events of Yakuza. So I think, like, a lot of the tragic stuff that happens with Nishiki and Yakuza is further amplified because of what happened. If you played Yakuza 0, and you know about that.
Really quick to get off of that point too, because you bring up how it kind of strengthens that story point. I also think that you're forgetting one important thing too, is that, like, okay, like Majima, right? They Yakuza 0 is.
Well, I was gonna bring that up too. Like, yeah, Majima as well.
Hold on.
I'll just say, like, real quick, it also, like, recontextualizes what you know about, like, when Majima is introduced in Yakuza, and and the character he is in Yakuza 0, and you kind of wonder, like, oh, how did he turn into what he is in Yakuza, and from what he is in Yakuza 0.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up actually. Is that it's also the case with Majima, because Majima is a completely different character, but it expands on his character for Yakuza 1, because you kind of have that understanding that that's not really who he is. He just kind of puts on a face for that. But also, just on top of that, like, you kind of see the beginning of that at the end of Yakuza 0, right? So we kind of expect him to be more like he's basically just Kiryu's, like, best friend. Obviously, he's just, like, pushing him to fight him and stuff like that, but he really just wants to fight him because he enjoys it more so than anything. But also too, it you know, in Majima's case, his story kind of gets expanded on in later games too. When you think about it, with like Yakuza 4, for example. So I think like Kiwami 1 existing is kind of neat because of Yakuza 0, because they do expand upon that. It's also kind of the reason why I think they should have continued with the Kiwami remakes up to 5, just to kind of make everything fit with the new lore that was established in 0. But it's not the biggest deal in the world, in my opinion. And I think the developers even talked about wanting to do a Kiwami 3 at one point, but that's neither here or there. I do like... I know some people did not like the Nishiki flashbacks. I didn't really mind them. I don't know how you guys feel about them, to be quite honest. But like, I think the Nishiki flashbacks.
I'm a bit real. I did not know that those were flashbacks. I thought they were happening at real time during the story.
What? Nah.
The first time I played Kiwami, I thought they were happening like side by side.
No, it's those
no.
those are happening while Kiryu was in prison for like the last like 10 years, because he was, you know, he went to prison in like the 90s, and then when he gets out, it's like, you know, it's the early 2000s, and like a lot of shit has changed, so he's playing catch up, you know. And in that time, yeah, go on.
I wanted to kind of add on to some of the stuff you guys were saying earlier, right?
Yeah.
It's I feel like 0, alongside those flashbacks, add on to the story of 1 a lot. Because 1, when it was originally created, right, it is more of a setup story for what will later become the franchise, right? So as a result, I feel like the actual narrative, right, is a bit weaker than what you will see in the rest of the series, right? And I think that 0 existing alongside, you know, them revamping some stuff with Kiwami is very much needed, and I appreciate it a lot. Because it makes the story of 1 a lot better, right?
Okay. Yeah, I could see that, that take, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. You know, it's like, and it's not just with like Kiryu or Majima, it's just with like a lot of the setup there too, right? Because something I guess we kind of sort of talked about with like a little bit, or Chaos brought up a little bit earlier, is like Kamurocho, for example, as that series has gone on over the years, right? That part of the series, right, has just constantly expanded and grown in some way, shape, or form, right? And even just playing like Yakuza 0 to whether you play the original Yakuza 1 or even Kiwami 1, right? You now have like this whole new like way of looking at Kamurocho as a town, because you experienced it in a completely different way, right?
Yeah.
So in a sense, it's like the story, the town, right, of Kamurocho kind of tells its own story as well, just based off of how it you know, changes and evolves over the years, and I guess
the town is
with Yakuza 1
in
particular, going off of 0.
The actual town itself is very interesting, and it is very cool to see it slowly evolve over time.
Yeah, because you'll see some of those same areas that you saw in the other games in like the next one, but there'll be like some new stuff there too. And you know, even, you know, not to get too sidetracked, but you know, even in Judgment, for instance, you know, you see a lot of the same stuff that you saw in Yakuza, but you see how they've expanded on it from the Yakuza game.
Sure.
This is why I love acid reusage.
I think it's an example of how it can be done pretty well.
Yeah, I would agree.
For sure.
I also think that you know, from a story standpoint too, can we just talk about the fact that like Nishiki is such a good villain in the sense that they make you like really hate this guy. I mean, I hate this guy so much that I blame him for pretty much everything that happens like from Yakuza 1 afterwards. Like everything is his fault indirectly.
Even Ryuji.
Well,
I have
I mean,
noticed that a lot.
he did do some stuff. So I mean, I don't think we should, give him a pass for what he did.
I have noticed that a lot, that people who start with 1, they hate Nishiki, and people who start with 0, they're like, oh my god, it's so tragic. It's so funny.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
That's why I started with Kiwami, then went to 0.
No, I played kind of going a little back here on the question, but like I started with Yakuza 1 because I wanted to get into the series because I heard a bunch of content creators talking about it, and I'm like, I wonder what this is. And I think I did play 4 at one point, but I didn't like it because 4 has a terrible like introduction, I think, because they start you off with that hostess club thing. But besides the point,
I had the same experience.
I ended up picking up Yakuza's 1 and 3, and I played them over the holiday of like 2015. So that's when I first got into Yakuza, and like, I absolutely enjoyed my time with Yakuza despite the gripes, but like the story does a really good job at making you hate Nishiki. And just really getting into like the overall like drama, if you will, right, that's involved in this story, and then going afterwards, like I said, like I think they did a really good job in the original one, and especially in Kiwami with the nice visuals and stuff. I think making you hate Nishiki. To the point where you can literally just blame him for whatever you want.
So I think to kind of go back a little bit, like I feel like that's why 0 is great, because it recontextualizes it a lot to the point where instead of having it more like a conflict that's more black and white, you kind of see a bit more why this character is the way he is. So it's
I mean, I still blamed him in Yakuza 0. I still blamed him in Yakuza 0.
Right.
You haven't played it?
A bit clouded by past experience, I see. But no, like I like him in 0. I don't like him in 1. I think he's a good villain in that regard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, can we also just talk about the fact that they also just in general they make the characters like outside of the main characters just really likable, to like some degree or another. They like have some kind of quirk or like something that they like really like over exaggerate about those characters that just makes them likable or hateable in whichever you prefer, right? In some way or another in just Yakuza 1, like. Because I don't think there is really a bad character in Yakuza 1 per se. Like, and by bad I mean like a poorly written character or anything like that. I think all the characters are just really done well in that story.
Yeah, they're very interesting for sure. Like you get to like even like characters that play a less important role, like Shimano or whatever, right? He's just like he's sitting there just eating food, and he looks like really menacing or whatever. It's like
Really well animated food too.
yeah.
I don't know what that food is, but I want like a dozen plates with.
Yeah.
They do typically make the food look pretty good.
Well, that's on purpose.
Even since 5.
Yeah.
That's on purpose though. So
yeah.
But I think I actually think they also did like a really good job at like kind of making you care enough about the relationship that Kiryu has with like a lot of these characters as well, like with you know, like Oyobun being like, he's not actually his father, but like he cares about him so much that he only, you know,
He might as well be.
Yeah, like he cares about him so much that like when he finds out that he's not actually his father and that like he killed his father, it's like he's like, I don't care because like you are my dad type of deal. Like that kind of hit me where I lived. But
Yeah.
but you know, like or just the fact too, like like Yumi dying, like that like that almost got me to cry, but Yakuza 1 was not the game to make me cry when it comes to this franchise. We'll talk
Lay
about that
down.
some other
Try
day.
not to cry. Cry a lot.
Yakuza has made me Yakuza is the only franchise to have ever made me physically cry playing a game, and I think that's saying something in terms of like just, you know, them doing a story. But like Yakuza 1 was not that game. It was close, but it was not that game.
Gaiden broke me. That was the one that made me cry.
Yeah, for me it was 3. But
Yeah, 3 had some moments.
Hmm.
yeah, 3 wasn't to people try to downplay 3 as oh, it's the beach adventure game. No, that's an experience right there.
He's up there on the rough.
A bit of a roller coaster. Yeah.
Kiryu tries to become a foster parent to a bunch of orphan children.
Well, not yet.
Don't forget the
yeah.
broken English in that game.
Yeah, not yet, but right now now we're just on 1, but like yeah, no, I think they did a pretty good job, and then like just you know, the way that the characters like interact with each other in that story, it's just for the time, and even with the remake, I think they did a really good job. I think Yakuza 1 as a story really holds up.
Yeah, for sure.
I haven't heard Brandon.
So I guess we're gonna touch on the gameplay.
Yeah, we can in a little bit. I didn't know if
Okay.
Brandon or James wanted to share their take on the story at all for Yakuza.
You guys kind of said everything already, so I don't have anything new.
I want to say my take like 2 questions ago, but you guys kept talking and diverging to one thing or another, so I kind of lost the plot.
I'm sorry.
We can go back.
We can go back, yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's
We're over here. Anyway, as far as the story is concerned, as far as the Yakuza series is concerned, I honestly, the only stories that actually kept me invested truly was actually 1 and 2. Right, and maybe a little bit of 6. Yeah, in terms of high key investment. Now, this is also on the premise of, hey, I did not play 0 yet. I did not finish 3, 4, or 5, and I never played 7 and 8.
Okay.
And I still need to finish Gaiden. I almost done with that game.
So,
But in terms of all the stories that I've completed or know enough of, 1 and 2 are the ones that, and to a certain sense 6 especially, I had the most investment in.
strictly.
But it's-
the one
I don't know if
Yeah,
this. I don't know if this might be a hot take, but to me, like 2. I mean, because granted, I've only played like 1 through 3. I still haven't played 4, 5, and 6 of like I guess the Kiryu games. But to me, like 2 was kind of almost like the peak of, you know, the sort of, I guess you'd say, the storytelling or characters.
Yeah, I'm in agreement, especially with Ryuji. I think he's probably still my favorite villain.
Yeah, it's just my only gripe about 2 is that I do not like the decision they made to kind of without. Well, I know we don't care about spoilers, but I'll just say, like, you know, sort of resetting Kiryu, I guess, to the status quo after the events of 2, in a way. So yeah, I kind of just the events of 2 had more like of an impact, especially given all of what happens in that game.
I was fine with Kiryu getting back into the game of things, but the one thing I was actually not happy with was the execution of our favorite antagonist in that game. I think they should have just left him alive, you know.
Yeah.
But again, when I talk about 2, I just want to throw it out. I'm talking about 2 right now, but
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I agree with Kaz though. I think 2 is definitely the peak of the storytelling.
So.
Oh, we left that down.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, I agree, because yeah, they took our boy.
Uh-huh.
They took our boy.
But you mentioned earlier that people
There can
had
only
issue
be one
with,
dragon.
What's up?
you mentioned earlier that people had issue with the flashbacks, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, one, I didn't even know there were fucking flashbacks, and two, I have no issue with them because it's just adding more story context to what's there. Despite me being new, being new to the franchise technically at the time, right? Because one was actually Kiwami 1 was the first game that I actually completed. My first Yakuza game technically was actually 0 on the PS3. Yeah, back when it was easy to make Japanese accounts. Yeah, but yeah. So my first full-on experience was Kiwami 1, and I didn't even know that they added in extra story bits because I'm like, it just felt natural to me.
Yeah, it's like I said, they're very inconsequential, but I was aware of the fact that there are people out there that just really don't like the addition of those cutscenes. I really don't think that they really hurt the story, if anything, because it's just like, okay, like after each chapter you get this flashback sequence of like, okay, this is what Nishiki was doing while Kiryu was in prison, right? So it kind of builds on his character, even though it's like it doesn't give you like full context or anything. It just kind of leads into how he basically went from the guy we knew, or at least the guy that Kiryu knew, to the guy he becomes, which is like this person who he doesn't give a shit about bringing.
Okay, yeah, because it just hit me because I was like, because it's been a minute since I played Kiwami, and I was like, I was thinking like this whole time, I was like, was there flashback? But now I know exactly where you're talking. Yeah. The cutscenes when Kiryu is in prison in Kiwami. Yeah, like I mean, I guess you could argue like, yeah, the original, like, oh, you don't get to see how Nishiki got to where he was, and how he became that character, and maybe that's for the best that we don't know, so our mind can kind of fill in the blanks. But I do like how in Kiwami they do try to address that, especially with what we know of Zero. I feel like especially people who've played Zero, they want to see exactly how he got to that point. And I think that the cutscenes I think do a pretty good job of like showing like how he became that character.
Right, and even if we just disregard like Zero, it gives good background as to exactly why Kiryu really likes this guy, and he really hates the fact that he has to fight him.
Yeah, I mean, there was some messed up stuff that happened with Nishiki, to where like you could almost kind of see where he's coming from. You could understand why he went down that path.
Granted,
like,
he's still an asshole, and I blame him for everything. But
if I remember correctly, like, was it when he had to help somebody in the hospital or something? I think, or he what was it? I think if I remember correctly, like, he was basically like, in a way, like, kind of he was blackmailed, and he was sort of like, there's a lot of fucked up stuff that I remember happened to him that made him into that character.
Yeah.
Basically, he spiraled down a rabbit hole that he couldn't get out of.
Yeah.
Because like him killing Dojima kind of led to like a chain like reaction, because everybody in like their in the Tojo clan basically knew that like there is no way in hell that Kiryu was the one that committed that murder, and that he took the fall for him, because of the fact that Nishiki always came off as like this weak guy that had to rely on Kiryu. And so it goes into this like a spiral of him like, hey, more and more he's getting blamed for this, and more he's taking it personal, and to a degree, yes, he became that way, and it's kind of tragic, but at the same time, he didn't have to be that way. He didn't have to throw Bro under the bus and try to fucking kill him after he got out of prison, because his whole thing was supposed to get him back into the Tojo clan after he got out of prison.
I think a lot of that was probably him trying to like maintain that image he's built up of being like strong, and I don't know, he's he's better than Kiryu now or something like that. Like, I mean, that's just kind of how I interpreted it. You know, especially considering the Yakuza is, you know, you kind of got to prove that constantly that you're just above everybody. You know, you can get it done. You don't need, you know, you don't necessarily need to, or I don't know. That's just kind of how I saw it. But
well, that and his biggest motivation was, can I bone Yumi?
Yeah, well, that's the other thing that like I don't think I could like really forgive him for, is, you know, him just trying to, you know, him doing Kiryu like that. I was like, okay, is that necessary?
Yeah. Yeah, poor Kiryu. Yeah, that's why I don't like Nishiki. I really don't like Nishiki. Yeah, you could argue he went through like last minute redemption, sure, but like
he crossed the line there.
Yeah, no, see, because like when I think about it, like in the grand scheme of things, you literally everything that he did in Yakuza 1 is the catalyst for everything else that follows, which, you know, kind of brings Kiryu down, but in the long term, I guess, because in the short term it brings, you know, Nishiki down, right? Because he ends up dying, but in the long run, it fucks over Kiryu, I think. But I don't know. I haven't gotten to 7 or 8 yet, so I have yet to see how his story goes. So anyway, I think we're pretty much good on story. So why don't we talk more in depth about the gameplay, actually? So James, I know you really enjoy the style switching, so I'll let you kind of take the lead on this one and just kind of talk about, like, you know, all the things you like about the overall gameplay, combat, and just even just the like side content that's available in Yakuza.
Well, I might be biased, and most of us are probably biased since we all love Devil May Cry. I mean, the style switching felt at home for me, so I felt like it just worked naturally. Need to dodge, switch to rush, pick up something, go to what was it, beast mode?
Mm-hmm.
It just felt natural. I don't know why they didn't do it sooner, type of thing. Keep in mind, I came off I started with Yakuza 4.
Yeah.
So that might partially be why I'm biased for especially rush style, because Akiyama is basically that, but with his feet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just thought it was a natural evolution of the gameplay. You get Dragon Style, right? It's been a while since I played that. I think you do all of Majima's everywhere missions.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how you upgraded in Kiwami. In 0, you had to do all the side quests for the real estate, if I remember right. It kind of works slightly differently in Yakuza 0. There's like a couple of like specific like grab moves or heat moves, I think, with 0, but in Kiwami they like really like upgraded his dragon style from that game.
Yeah, well, for me, since I played both of them, Kiwami 1 and 0 have the best gameplay to me. Just overall the series. I don't think it can be beat so far. I don't personally like that they dropped it. I know Dragon Style is his thing, but I don't see what removing options does to enhance the gameplay. That's just me personally.
Well, I can actually counter that. Actually, they didn't remove options. They gave you all the options available. See, like the issue with the sound system, that it wasn't bad. It was fucking awesome. Problem is that there's too much overlap. That they literally condensed it into one thing, and it worked out just fine, as I pointed out with 2 and 6. Now, thankfully though, in the later games, they redefined the sound system and actually make them actually different. The issue with I have with them originally, at least Kiwami 1 is concerned, is that Brawler style and Dragon style are practically the same type of styles. On God.
I always assumed, I thought Brawler style was his like, well, at least in Yakuza 0, it felt like his pre-Dragon style. Kiwami 1, I don't know what to say for that one. They could have replaced Brawler with Dragon and called it a day.
Yeah. The point again is that there's so much overlap that Brawler and Dragon felt practically the same, with oddest differences. Like one, you can counter as long as you have your heat meter, you counter permanent any attack with Brawler. With Dragon, you can enhance any attack so long as you got heat, which is why it's one of the better ones because of the combo center, right? But again, like you can literally combine both of them and do the exact same thing and call it a day, which they have. Beasts, they turn Beasts into the heat mechanic from 6 and 2, where you just go absolute ape shit, literally pick up stuff. And
where's my motorcycle?
Yeah, literally, you literally do all that in heat. So thus, you have still a Beast style, just amped up to high hell. As far as Rush is concerned, which I find honestly the weakest style, mainly because of how low the damage is, they give you the evasion naturally over time.
Well, wasn't it when you're in heat you have? I thought when you're in heat you have evasion as well.
Yeah, in the later games, in Kiwami 1, the only for you to keep the evasion up in that game is just have your heat up in Rush style. So it's whatever, right? But the point is that the strongest tools you have from Rush, they already gave it to you naturally. So you don't need to have that style anymore.
Keep in mind I haven't played Kiwami 2 or just 2 in general yet. That's still in my backlog of things. And 6.
really
I have
fun.
6 on my shelf still. So 2 games I've not played.
Which is something
you
I'm
need
glad
to go
they
and play
actually
2 like right
rectified.
now.
Yeah, I agree, play 2. But there's something that they actually did a good job rectifying. They actually make the styles feel more unique. I'm going to actually use the Gaiden for example. You got your terrorist style with the special agent, and you got your dragon style, your thug style, pretty much, right? They actually did a better job at making them so different from each other that it's actually worth using both styles, depending on the situation, instead of just sticking to one type of style and switching it to where you absolutely need to switch to a different style. Of course, you're going to have your favorites from different styles, right? But to use, like, Democrat's terminology, you have one that's specialized in melee, one in range, one in defense, and one in evasion, right? In Yakuza's case, though, they didn't do good balancing out individually.
No, because Brawler it wants to be everything but nothing at the same time. It's like a jack of all trades type of style, which makes me question using the other styles somewhat. I can
Brawler
agree with
just
that.
felt more basic.
Brawler's basic, but it's actually my favorite for the fact that you can actually counter virtually anything, along with the freaking dragon drop. Like,
Tiger drop.
Yeah, Tiger drop. You're
the
freaking.
I was gonna bring that up. I hope you like your wrist because it won't be there for another minute.
Oh yeah, Kiwami 1 has the best Tiger drop in the fucking series, bro.
I don't. You cannot argue with me that like them nerfing Tiger drop was cool. It's like his ultimate attack is a counter move, and you made it ass. Like why?
Yeah, the amount of effort you had to go through to unlock it, and they made it ass in the later games. Like, come on.
I gotta hear Kamaki hyping it up the whole game. Yeah, that shit better be broken.
It's so satisfying to Tiger drop in Majima when he's doing his break dances. He's constantly killing himself.
Honestly, that's the easiest way to beat him at like the end game when he has a ridiculous health bar. Just spam Tiger drop.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
Actually,
or 1+ triangle.
I'm glad you kind of brought up Komaki just now. And also just because we were talking about styles, because I want to go a little bit on this too. Because I'm not mistaken. Technically, if I'm not mistaken, the first game to have styles is either Kenzen or the first PSP game. But I'm pretty certain it's probably going to be Kenzen, just because it's the first PS3 game, and I don't know exactly when the PSP games came out. Anyway, they introduced that, and it's, it was just basically sword styles at the end of the day. Then Ishin happened, the original, not the remake that we ended up getting localized here. So I have no idea how much different the original Ishin is in comparison to the remake in terms of the style system. I don't know what changes they might have made or refinements, but in terms of like Ishin, just Ishin Kiwami, because that's what it's called in Japan. I think the style system in that game, they really differentiated it a lot. And so I'm kind of also in the same camp of like, I really do prefer having styles in these games. It's not the end of the world for me for the games not to have them, but I do think it is a little bit jarring when like, you go from like Kiwami 1 to Kiwami 2, and Kiwami 2 doesn't have styles.
Yeah, the release order is what makes it even more annoying because of that.
Yeah, because it's literally the game that came out after 6, and the combat style is literally like Yakuza 6, so then it makes it a little more confusing if you like kind of think about it from a lore perspective. I won't get into that today, but
Listen,
long
my
story
order of
short.
Yakuza is already fucked up. I started with 4.
Yeah. Well, long story
And then
short,
I played 3, and fun fact, I thought 3 was like the worst one. And just in terms of gameplay, I hated it. I still kind of hate it. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, 3 is my least favorite.
I don't know why every
Yeah,
enemy in that game is a friggin' turtle, and it pisses me off. Like, bro, swing at me already, Jesus.
I technically started at 4 as well, but I didn't really play the whole game. I played like the beginning of it, and then I just went back to the beginning and I played the original Yakuza.
yeah. Well, anyway,
Partially why I'm biased for Akiyama, but moving on.
anyway, what I was gonna say was like, you know, like yeah, so I am kind of biased towards the styles because I like having them, and I do think that that system could have been further refined if they just stuck with it. But I understand, like, you know, if they don't bring them back, or if they just decide to like kind of, you know, cram them all into just one thing, or you know, at least in my logic, it's just by Yakuza 6, it makes sense why it would only be one, because like that's peak Kiryu at that point, right? So it kind of makes sense why he would
Fuck
only
around,
have
find
one.
out.
Yeah, basically.
Lose your wrist, bitch.
That said, and technically this kind of started with Yakuza 0, where they introduced different style masters to learn different moves and stuff like that. Where in Kiwami 1, you know, you fight Majima to expand on the dragon style to relearn the moves that he had when prior to his arrest, right? Because he had all those moves. But also you do go to Komaki to also enhance some of those moves that apply both to his other styles on top of his dragon style, which I think that was a really you know, interesting way to expand upon that. Because in the original Yakuza, you didn't have the Majima Everywhere system. So you didn't fight Majima, like, at every point in the game, and upgrading your combat or whatever. No, it was just, you basically just fought guys. You had to grind, which this is part of the reason why people dreaded getting into fights in the original game, because of the load times. Even though you kind of had to do it because you had to level up the character. You had to do that. You also had to do training, which the training in the original game, in my opinion, it hasn't aged well. A lot of the combat, even though like, and I think we're kind of, at least for those of us that have played the original, are in agreement that yeah, people should at least check out that game, because for what it is, it's a pretty good PS2 game despite the glaring flaws that are present there. Kiwami definitely, like, if the HD collection didn't address those problems, Kiwami definitely did, you know, and they made grinding, and they made like training with Komaki and stuff like that actually a more enjoyable experience overall, I think. So
Yeah.
like getting into the like the combat and working your way up to have all the styles and increasing your overall like attack power and stuff like that is just a lot of fun in Kiwami, which
Beats fighting his grandson in Yakuza 5, where he just tiger drop spams you. I'm like, all right, don't use my tech against me.
yeah,
That's illegal. Only I can do that.
Yeah, so like I think you know, in that regard, like they did a really good job with expanding on the combat. I also just kind of want to talk a moment about the side quests and stuff, and just the side content. I don't like that they changed certain things about the side content in the Kiwami remake. One of the things that they definitely changed, because Yakuza has been doing this thing ever since I couldn't tell you which game, but definitely in the more recent entries since like 0, maybe a little bit before that too, where they have been prioritizing getting like real life actors or like porn stars and like grab your idols and stuff like that to be in these games. And I think part of that
Grab
kind
your
of
what now?
grab your idols. I don't fucking know how to, like, models basically.
Yeah.
With permission, sure, I will.
So the problem, I think, is that because they put in money into like getting these, these people into the game, they have to pay for the use of their likenesses or whatever, right? And I don't know how much that costs, or if that, if some actors or whatever, they're public domain, because that is the case for certain actors in Japan, where the use of their likeness is public domain. For some, it's not. And long story short, I think that like problem with Kiwami is that they changed, like, okay, well, if you go to the hostess clubs, you only have one girl in each club, I think. So it's a total of 2 girls that you could actually like go out with. So it lessens the amount of side quests that you have because of it. That wasn't the case in the original, because they didn't use like real life actors and stuff like that beforehand. And I think that's partially because of the fact that the series had already become so popular that, they started prioritizing that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's a bad thing per se. I just think that they kind of prioritized it a little too much, which meant that we lost a bit of content in that regard. But at the same time, I will say that at least doing side content in Kiwami 1, way more enjoyable and way more fun to go through than in the original. And, it kind of goes back to, again, even though original Yakuza 1 would still recommend people play it, a lot of the flaws still apply, and so you have to kind of go through that. And things are also not very clear as to like what you're supposed to do. I think they got better.
I was very lost in 4.
I think they got better at doing side quests in Yakuza by Yakuza 2 specifically. But like if you never played a Yakuza game beforehand, you're going to be like super lost if, like, in James's case, you jump in straight into 4, right? And you don't know what the fuck you're doing because they're kind of...
No, they pulled up at the hostess clubs and like, what do I have to do with them exactly? Like, I get the concept of what I'm supposed to do, but like mechanically, I don't know what the game wants me to do.
I want to be honest though, every Yakuza game is bad with this, like, because every game is going to be your first, right? But how the hell am I supposed to know that side quest is going to be there, it be on the map? There's something that I think 6 rectifies by showing you there's a side quest right there, instead of just you randomly run into it and it triggers and you can't escape from it. And that, which is rare, of course, though, but still.
Like, I will say, like in the earlier Yakuza games, like the hostess clubs were one of the things I didn't really look forward to. I was never really a fan of the hostess club mini games or the side quests. I thought they really improved it, and like, for instance, like, when you're trying to manage the club, like in Yakuza 0, I thought that was pretty fun.
Zero,
yeah, that was better. That was good.
Yeah,
Cause
but in some of the
why?
PS2 games are. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Do you know why? It's because in Yakuza 4 you have to go off of Nagoshi's taste. In 0, he just said fuck it, just go off of whatever you think is good.
Yeah, damn right.
So
For taste in waifus is trash. Mine is better.
it is. it genuinely is.
Damn right.
It's like, so I think,
Now make me some money.
so I think that was the biggest issue with that side quest. They didn't have that in Kiwami 1, which is kind of surprising, but I think that kind of makes sense in the context of everything. That said, like, I think like side quests were more fun to go through in Kiwami 1. I didn't do all of them, because even though I like Yakuza 1, it wasn't Yakuza 0. So, and Yakuza 0, prior to Ishin getting the remake that it got, arguably my favorite Yakuza game. But Ishin is very damn close. Might honestly top that game for me, but we'll talk about those games some other time for sure.
Yeah, I still need to play Ishin.
Dude, you
Back to
have
pimping.
to. You really have. Like, you don't have to play any of the other.
Because saying it's about as good as 0 is pretty high praise.
Look, you don't. Have
I think
to
0 has my favorite side quest. I'm not gonna lie.
Like, you don't have to play any other Yakuza or Like a Dragon, but like
Well, yeah, because
specifically
different setting.
Well, different setting, but some of the characters
Different
from the other games that show up.
Yeah.
But you could still go into it not having it played any other Yakuza or Like a Dragon game and still have a good time with it. For me, it's like, look, I know I have bias for samurai games, but like just strictly speaking, as a Like a Dragon or Yakuza game, like honestly, like I think it's as good, if not better, than Zero, and that's saying a lot. So, but I don't want to diverge too much. So going back to
Who cares? We've already done it so much at this point.
Yeah, this is basically just the Yakuza podcast. Let's be fair.
Well,
you know, we'll have more. We'll talk about the other Yakuza games for sure in the future, because like, but you know, going back to like Yakuza 1 and Kiwami 1, yeah, I just think side content was, for the most part, I think was more fun, more enjoyable in Kiwami 1. I think they added in more mini games as well, like more arcade games in particular in the Kiwami 1 remake, which that's always great too. So overall, I think they did a much better job with the side content, made it more enjoyable, because the original game is pretty rough on a lot of the side content for obvious reasons.
I find it funny how there is an entire story arc for shit like pocket racing. I find that always enjoyable.
Yeah, right. And it carries on from game to game. Even Yakuza 6, like, hey, I know you.
It's so funny.
Even the bug girl trading card thing is still the weirdest thing in that game.
Was fun.
Oh yeah.
That shit was actually really fun.
Yeah,
It was. I was just like, man, this is weird.
Unironically. I came for the bug. I stayed for the bugs, bro. That shit was fun.
And there was some like little kid playing the games, trying to get you into it. And the arcade club
This
Sega.
is what kids are into nowadays.
Oh yeah, Kiryu. I'm like, yeah, the kid's based. Kiryu, leave him alone.
Can we?
He understands.
Can we? Well, actually, because the bug thing was originally it wasn't a bug thing. It was just women's wrestling in Yakuza Zero's like underground.
Yeah, but they were
I like that one for obvious reasons.
Yeah, there was a cat fight thing.
Yeah, and then they changed it to the bug fight thing to keep it in the game, but in a different way, which I think was a great way to like keep it, but still change it to make it different enough, right? But you know, another thing we haven't talked about, and I think this is a fucking damn shame we haven't talked about it: karaoke.
Oh man, what a shot! Let's keep going.
We're breaking the law.
It was better.
I hate this fucking mini game.
I
like
karaoke.
it's the same
karaoke,
songs
just
for,
not in Yakuza.
I like it's the same songs for every game, but it's still just as amazing with every game.
Yeah. Also, I think it's better over time.
Do you know
like
what
put in more
helps?
effort.
Do you know what helps is that because Kiryu's Japanese VA is an actual like vocalist, so like on the side.
I mean,
like,
he's a pretty good singer though, so I give it.
For him, it was a Tuesday.
Like for him, if he's not doing voice acting, he's just doing music. So like that's his thing. That's why the music sounds good, you know. And I think that's what makes it way more fun to go through. Like
what I find funny too is that the voice actor for Kiryu, he just has a very distinctive voice. Like I feel like I've actually heard him in some anime too, because I can actually tell it's him. I'm like, yeah, that's Kiryu.
That has happened actually.
He's like the Johnny Yambashi of Japan. It's the same freaking voice that you know it's him. Even if you change the pitch just slightly, you know it's him.
He's a character in Japanese Thomas the Tank Engine, and the only reason why I know this is because of Derek. Thank you, Derek. Derek is the only reason why I know that. So, yeah.
You're making me imagine a train moving like a half an inch forward, and that's the tiger drop.
I think he was. I think he was the principal in Jujutsu Kaisen, which was pretty funny when I heard.
If you heard the show Romokun, he's the adoptive dad of the main character in that shit, and
he's the grandpa.
Yeah.
it is hilarious hearing him just be all, uptight, cutesy, and all that shit.
Call me Ojisama.
He,
Hey,
he
really,
appears in a
he's Starscream in one of the Transformers cartoons.
yeah. He
What's up?
appears
Well, that
in
paints a weird
lot.
image in my head.
He appears in a lot of Japanese dubs of Western movies because they dub movies over there. I've noticed that a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shit's insane, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the same case with Majima's voice actor as well, because he's in a lot of stuff too. Although I don't think Majima's VA does like music. I think he strictly does like voice acting and just acting.
He's pretty good at it, so.
Yeah. Actually, since we were talking about music a little bit, I guess we could start talking about the soundtracks to both Yakuza 1 and Kiwami 1. I guess I'll just start off by saying I kind of have a hot take on this one too. I kind of prefer the original soundtrack over the remake. That's not
even a hot take.
That's
not
not
the cool
Yeah.
really, because I would assume
How
that
lukewarm
most
of you.
Actually, no, the hot take here is actually saying you like it more than the original, and I'm in that camp. I actually very much like the remake soundtrack way more than the original.
Really?
Same for Kiwami too.
Yeah, because that's the take that I've heard mostly. Is
Yeah.
that most people like, or at least from what I've heard, is that most people that I've talked to about this is that they prefer Kiwami's over the originals. But I kind of prefer the original over Kiwami's.
I like them
Also,
both,
there's nothing-
but
There's nothing wrong with that because, like, to like one or the other, because both of them are fucking good anyway. So enjoy what you watch.
Agreed. Yeah.
I just remember, like, around, I guess, maybe when Kiwami 2 came out, I'm not going to name names, but certain content creators were, like, shitting on it because, oh my god, they changed the music here. It's so bad. Oh my god, in Kiwami 2, it is, saying, I guess, it ruins the scene.
Like that was especially when that type of music was still in its infancy, like the electronic rock and all that stuff. It was nowhere near as popular as it is today. So like a lot of people at the time just shat on it simply for it being different.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really have an issue with it regardless. I just thought, like, okay, it's a different take on the scene. And I still would argue that it works. It's just a different, they just decided to use something different for it.
Yeah.
But I think in both it works just, in different ways. For what, the kind of emotion they're trying to get out of you, But I thought, I thought I would say both, the original and Kiwami, I thought I liked the soundtrack. Obviously they had kind of a different approach with Kiwami, but I still would say they're about as good. It's just, obviously it's a remake, so they're gonna do something different with it.
Yeah, like I'm not surprised that they like rearranged and remixed the tracks because that's to be expected anytime they do a remake of anything, right? I think like the original game fits the tone with that soundtrack. Like the soundtrack fits the tone of the game, right? And it's not to say that Kiwami 1 has a bad soundtrack, because I don't think so. I agree with like what Brandon said earlier. Is both are good, but I think both are good for different reasons. I think Kiwami 1's like remixes are great if you like the original game soundtrack and just want to hear different takes of them. But I don't think, for me at least, they don't really replace the original soundtrack. Because like one of the things that I love about the original was that whenever you went to the hideout, it acted as like your save room, right? And anytime you did, they would like basically play save room music, and that for me was like oh shit, like why hasn't Sega made a fucking survival horror game, using some really good fucking music like this? But like, jokes aside, like I really like the like save room theme or the hideout theme. One of my favorite tracks in the original game. It's not in Kiwami at all. Like they don't even put it in like the background in like any room or anything like that. It's just not there. And to an extent, I understand why, because they haven't had a soundtrack for the Hideout since Yakuza 2, so it kind of makes sense. Why Kiwami wouldn't have it. But also too, like, if we're just gonna talk about like the combat music, right? Like I think like Funk Goes On, like the remix for that, not bad. But
I prefer the original.
I'm also kind of biased towards the
The
original.
original is
so,
pretty
like,
good, I'll admit.
It's more funky.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The funk does go on.
Yeah, it's not a bad remix. It's just like I think tonally it makes more sense with the original. So
Fuck it, Tom. I'm here to beat up people. Give me them rock music. Let's go.
Yeah, I know, like in Zero, and then I guess in Kiwami as well, they had the more like rock tracks that would play, and most of the fights.
Zero had a lot of techno in it too, like techno rock.
Yeah.
That's probably why it's my favorite soundtrack wise. Hard to beat it.
Bubbles is forever the best soundtrack ever made in Yakuza. Don't at me. I'm mad he didn't add it in for the fucking Westerverse. Unrelated.
yeah,
What down me there? Okay.
yeah, I'm still here. I was gonna let you guys talk about soundtrack because I've already said what I had to say about the soundtrack. I wasn't sure.
They didn't need to cook in Zero. Was with the style. I remember every time you switch a style to a new track, I'm like, why did they all cook so hard?
Yeah.
That's
I thought that was
it.
pretty funny.
They didn't have that in Kiwami 1 though.
I don't
They
know.
did. It was a lot more subtle.
They did have techno, but I can't remember what track they had.
No. I'm saying like they didn't have it where like okay, if you change style, the theme, the battle track, right? It changed along with the style.
Oh, that I don't think so.
Because like
Nope, they didn't.
Because Yakuza 0.
I think Zero invented that one.
Every style had its own theme, and then like the neat thing with like if we're just strictly talking Kiryu, right? When you switch to Dragon style, it played a version of Receive You, like a remix version of that you could only hear when you turn on Dragon style.
I'm kind of generic, but Force Addiction might be my favorite in that game. I have a lot of favorites, but I think that's the Brawler theme for Zero. They cooked too hard. What can I say?
Yeah, so they didn't carry over any of those tracks into Kiwami 1, and I think that would have been kind of neat if they did like remixes for those
Guest appearance from the cat.
For Kiwami. Yes, Yuna
Featuring the cat.
Hello.
Kiryu is also an animal lover, don't you know?
Yes.
Oh, look, a cat.
It's not even a joke. He kind of actually is.
Yeah, he kind of abuses tigers too, but we're not talking about that.
They trying to kill him. That was survival, and they didn't realize he was the third tiger
One of the best
until
parts
he became the dragon.
It was one of the best parts of Yakuza 2. It's just tiger
punch
fight.
a fucking tiger.
But,
Well, and
tiger
apparently,
But can I tiger drop
apparently
the
in
tiger?
5, apparently in 5, I think you fight a bear.
yes. You fight yes, you don't
I
fight,
felt bad for the bear. He didn't know who he was dealing with, aka Saejima. His ass was cooked.
You fight a bear twice. But
Speaking of character themes, his theme is really good in 5.
yeah.
Saejima's, that is.
But yeah, like
I am very happy that Dom's cat joined us for this.
Focus.
I'm sorry. I have a gorgeous cat here who's giving me all this attention.
I appreciate the compliments, man, but look, we got podcasted.
I know, but I love my pet. So yeah, Yakuza 1, great soundtrack. Kiwami 1, also good. Just for me, the original is always going to be the best one. Now the real question is, can we consider Yakuza 1 a true Christmas game?
I don't know. Can we consider Harry Potter a Christmas movie?
Sure.
All right.
If Die Hard is,
all of
why
it.
can't
I was-
Yakuza?
I was going to bring that up too. Like, people bring up the debate of Die Hard. Like, if Die Hard's a Christmas movie.
It is. This isn't a debate.
Look, this is not a debate. There's no questions about this. It's a Christmas movie.
My whole thing with like, is something a Christmas movie? It's like, okay, is it set during Christmas, or is Christmas something that's actually like, central to the movie? Like, is there, like, I feel like I would actually, I hate to be this way, but I have to argue no, just because like Yakuza just happens to take place on Christmas, but like it would have to be like, okay, are people, I don't know, like, is Christmas like in the plot? Like, not really. No, it's just there.
It is.
I disagree. You do a lot of giving in Yakuza, aka handing out these hands.
A lot of these games actually take place around Christmas. I believe 2 does as well.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So does 5.
So I mean, low key, it is a Christmas series.
I don't. Well, I guess if Christmas is in all of the like a lot of the other games, maybe.
Look,
but
I think in 5 even got a Santa costume.
Oh yeah.
In 5 you do, I think.
Yeah, and in 0 there's like Christmas trees, I believe.
I was gonna say, in regards to Yakuza 1 being a Christmas game too, just consider the fact that like Christmas is also considered like a romantic holiday in Japan, and considering the fact that Kiryu is literally fighting for some pussy and loses it by the end, I think it's safe to say it's a Christmas movie. I'm just saying, like.
All the thugs are just on the naughty list, that's all.
Exactly. See?
You get a tiger drop for Christmas.
I mean, shit, we consider Batman Arkham Origins a Christmas game, so why not Yakuza 1? So,
you get an ass beaten for Christmas. That's what you get. I mean, what?
Exactly.
My stance on this is that I don't need the excuse of it being taking place during Christmas for me to play it on Christmas. I would definitely play Yakuza during Christmas.
Is it on the day of Christmas? Yes, that's it.
Preach.
That's how it works for me.
Preach. Martin, preach.
Or like Christmas Eve, I guess. If it's in like very close to it, I'm gonna count it.
Same for Xanadu. Yeah, it's my Christmas game.
So
can I have that goth woman that Gamma posted in chat for Christmas?
Okay.
Oh yeah.
That's just Martin.
Anyway,
only on Tuesdays.
Anyway, final thoughts on Yakuza 1, Kiwami 1, whichever you played, or even the HD collection if you know anything about it, before we wrap up today's podcast.
I got one actually. Do not play the Switch port. That's all I'm saying.
There's a Switch port?
Do tell.
Oh, have you guys not seen the frame rate for that shit, bro?
No.
Well, it's on the Switch.
Yeah, okay.
Kiwami.
Here's the thing, right? Just because it runs on the Switch doesn't mean it cannot run on the Switch, right?
Oh, it can, but yeah, you just got to sacrifice a lot of visual fidelity.
No, the problem is that like this game can run on a toaster. Whoever ported this game deserves to be fired because there is no excuse.
Oh, okay. Actually, no, sorry. You were talking about the original game. I thought you were like talking about like Kiwami or something.
No,
Kiwami 1 got ported to Switch.
Oh, you are talking about Kiwami. Okay.
Yeah, like you can run Kiwami on a freaking toaster, and for some reason that it runs horribly on the Switch, you deserve to be fired for that though. But legit,
I thought you were talking about
so bad.
Yeah.
The frame rate was so bad that the effects when you break stuff, the enemy count drops the frame rate down to almost single digits.
I thought you were talking about the original, like they ported the original PS2 game. I was like, how is this thing struggling with the PS2 game?
They do that? Why would they do that, bro? No, never mind. Ignore that thought. Like, seriously.
Nintendo's an enigma. I don't know.
Do not play the Switch port. Ignore that one.
I think what's kind of confusing me too is because Kiwami 1 was also on PS3, right?
Yeah, they are PS3 games. That's the thing. Zero and Kiwami 1 are PS3 games.
So, by all intents and purposes, the Switch port should be able to run this game close to spec of the PS3, if not slightly better, right?
Higher.
But you would think so.
But this thing can run Doom Eternal on it, bro. Like, there's no excuse for Kiwami to not run on it.
Oof.
It can technically run The Witcher 3 as well, so...
Yeah.
What happened? It doesn't.
Yeah,
make sense.
it just sounds like just a bad port.
Yeah, it is a bad port. They might be fixing it up now. It might be better now compared to the last time I seen it. But seriously, just avoid that version. Just play it on anything else but the Switch. Shit, play the PS3 version for all I care. Just avoid the Switch version. I'll be good. I'll be have good Japanese though, because it's only in Japan.
Yeah.
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 So.
But I guess yeah. Final thoughts. The original game is still great despite some shortcomings for it just being a PS2 game. You know, an obvious shortcoming is I guess just based on it being on PS2, and also it being like the first game in a fairly long running franchise. Kiwami is I would say, you know, definitely the superior version of that, of the original game in most regards. Like, you know, of course, I guess it's debatable with like, you know, the soundtrack and maybe some of the story changes, like the Nishiki stuff. But other than that, you know, the
Though,
presentation.
that's it. You cannot argue that the original is better than Kiwami in terms of presentation. Like you can't argue that at
Yeah.
all to me.
I don't
Yeah.
know. We got more Camel as Majima, so we got the English dub in the original.
That's not much of a brag nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, it's I guess just, you know, overall, like, you know, it's worth. I would say it's worth going back, like even if you haven't played the original Yakuza, and maybe like I don't know, for instance, you have just played Kiwami, like it's still worth going back and like playing the original game, if not just to see like how far the series has come since then, because
And to see the loading screens.
yeah, video. I mean, because yeah, you will definitely have more of an appreciation for the stuff you don't have to deal with now with like the Yakuza games than, you know, what you had to deal with the originals.
Or here's a suggestion too. If you can understand Japanese fluently enough, play the HD collection since they do feature the quality of life changes. I have no idea because I know RPCS3 is a thing, so you know PS3 emulation is
Yeah, but then
up. But I have no
but
idea.
then there's also the question of if they're doing like a fan translation or
Yeah,
anything
I was gonna
like that.
say, like, I have no idea if they've done a fan translation patch for that, like they have with the PSP games, for example.
I would say this though: if that doesn't work, just get a PS3 because they're pretty cheap now to get. Truth be told, and jailbreak it if you're not planning on doing anything else with it aside from just playing pirated games. You know. Sorry,
You mean sail
Legally
seas?
acquired.
You mean sailed the seven seas as a pirate yakuza? I mean, what?
Become the next.
Yar-har.
Right?
Oh yeah, that's coming out soon.
You
Brought to
can
you by
always play
RG
that.
Studios.
Take lessons,
But
Ubisoft.
You can always play that on that system and call it there.
So, yeah, I mean, you know, Yakuza is great. Like a Dragon, great. You know, play it however you can. I will. What I will do actually is I will leave a Google Doc that I made like a while back that I update every now and then with every Yakuza game. I don't think I've added in Pirate Yakuza as of yet, but I might do that soon. But for the most part, every Yakuza game you can play in either release order or chronological order. That way, you know, if you want to get into this series starting from one, you can, or you can kind of play it in a more catered or tailored order that makes a little more sense from a gameplay standpoint in terms of just the evolution and change of this series. Because this one thing we didn't really talk about, which maybe someday we could talk about when we talk about the other games in more depth, is how this series just constantly evolves with the gameplay, just the feel of the gameplay. Like going from 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 isn't so bad, right? If you go like play 3 and then go back to 1, it's not too bad. But then once you like jump from like 0 to original 1, that can be pretty jarring. Or like Ishin to original 2, that I think would be pretty jarring for people. So yeah, just check out that Google Doc. It's going to be somewhere in the description, or somewhere on the video, I don't know. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Unless if anybody else had any final thoughts before we do outros here.
I think that one is a great game, both versions, right? And I think no matter what order you play them in, like one, original, Kiwami, zero, even, right? I think you're gonna have a good time. Just make sure you play zero as well, because it does add on to one very, like, a lot.
Well, the cool thing too is that, you know, hell, if you want to go and play the Judgment games, you can play those without having played really. I would say without having playing any of the Yakuza games. The only thing you'd get if you had played the Yakuza games is some of the background information about, like, you know, the Tojo clan and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Look, it's
sure.
what he's saying is if you've played this series long enough, it'll feel like you grew up on those fucking streets.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, pretty much.
I mean, I marathoned them like the summer of like 21 or 2021. So yeah.
I can personally confess that it is fucking weird walking around in fucking Tokyo in Kabuki IRL after playing these games for years now.
Oh,
That
You
was so
almost
weird.
expect somebody to jump you.
Yeah, it's
'Cause
like
you- 'cause you went to-
fucking Majima coming out of a trash can.
Because you went to actual Kabuchiko, right? Or how's the name of the town?
Yeah, I did. It was just like, oh yeah, there is Don Quixote. That is, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I guess we're good to do outros here. So, well, first and foremost, Brandel, where can we find you?
Let's see. Well, you can find me on Twitter/X at ImmortalBrandel. I do have a Blue Sky account, but I'm not sure if I'm honestly going to use it or not. I see no need to actually have it up since, you know, I use Twitter mostly, and connections are easier to do on Twitter than Blue Sky. But yeah, that's the thing. Same thing, ImmortalBrandel. I do have a link tree, so you can see my other affiliations and socials there.
Yeah. Alrighty, up next we got James. Where can we find you, good sir?
On Twitter/X at DevilHunterJames. Bouncing away like Kiryu in that one GIF. I may have to post that in the video somehow.
That or you'll just see my ass getting beat like that. I don't know. We'll see.
Bro, what is happening to him? Anyways.
Yeah, I have
Just
no
a
idea.
ragdoll in Yakuza 6. No, it's Yakuza 2.
Kiwami too, yeah.
Yeah, this game has some
What,
funny
he-
ragdolls.
Yeah, but
I was
anyway.
gonna say, what does he turn into? Kermit the Frog style?
Wonky ass ragdoll physics.
Sure. Anyway, Eli, where can we find you, good sir?
You can find me on Twitter at Gamma Alias.
Alrighty, and then Chaos, where can we find you?
You can find me on YouTube at KaptainKaos and also on Twitter/X at KaptainKaos. And you can also find me on Instagram at Enigmatic Arts, where I post my art stuff.
Yep. And last but not least, Martin, where can we find you, good sir?
You find me on X at PsychoRender. I have other socials as well, but that is the most important one, so you just go there.
Yeah.
With all the cool kids.
Oh shit.
I have a Blue Sky, but I don't post there. I think it's
Same.
I don't know.
Discord did like a weird thing where it like disconnected or reconnected me. I don't know if you
It
guys
happened
have
to
that.
me as well.
Hate when that happens.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
To the Tuesday.
I
Yeah,
didn't.
you'd be alright. It shouldn't affect anything.
I still heard what Martin said, so I think we're good. But anyway, you all know where to find me. Biodevil Dom, Biodevil_Dom on YouTube, on Twitter. I have a link tree as well for everything else. Yeah, so you're probably seeing this around Christmas time. Don't know what else is coming out, what will be coming out in between or after the fact. That being said, we will be getting into our next season of the podcast for the next year. I don't know what's going to happen next year. So your guess is as good as mine as to how consistent or inconsistent we'll be with this podcast. But here's to hoping we'll be more consistent than not. That being said, we hope to see you again and hope to talk about some more Yakuza and more Like a Dragon in the future, where we could talk about like the spin-offs or just some of the other games in more depth after we binge more of the games. I really need to get back on the PSP game, but that all said, we will see you all in the next one. So later.
I hope Santa gives me a bulldozer.
Alrighty, that's the thing.
All right, that's definitely on my end.